Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the LCK Regional Qualifier, where we will find out our third seed to the World Championship. And at the moment, that could be either T1, Gen G, or the Afreeca Freecs. And Afreeca, if they continue playing like they did in the first round, theoretically they could get there, but they're up against a very angry T1 and LS. Do you think there's any hope for Afreeca this time around? They pulled the rabbit out of the hat the first time. Can they do it again?
Well, I feel like going into this match, there's obviously a really big question mark because the roster that T1 is fielding is entirely different probably to what anyone was expecting, probably even Afreeca. And so it's going to be really interesting, the game number one between these two teams. Game 3 last time between T1 and Afreeca, it ended really fast, and it was the kind of mistakes and errors that I don't think that you would assume would be recreated. So I feel like, and I know many others probably feel like, T1 is favored coming into tonight's series, even though Afreeca is coming off of a very dominant performance.
Yeah, it was a very dominant performance, but I think a lot of it was to do with the power level of KT rather than the power level of Afreeca. Afreeca has always been a team that's very good at beating lower level teams. We call them the gatekeepers for a reason, right? They're good at beating teams beneath them, not as good at beating teams above them. So let's see what they can do here today against an angry T1 with, like you say, a very different roster on the board. I believe that one has been leaked already. And it's going to be very exciting to see what the young AD Prodigy is going to be able to do there on the bottom side of the map. And if this is what gets T1 to Worlds, like, I don't know, man. That's like the most exciting thing ever, in my personal opinion. It's a really cool sort of coming-of-age story ready to happen, with Closer already having a great debut. And now Gumayushi on the bottom side of the map as well. A man who's been dominating solo queue for the longest of times, even though he's extraordinarily young.
Yeah, and I mean, we take a look at the points of the match here. It's the rematch after 2 weeks. T1 got knocked out by Afreeca in the wildcard series. Will they activate the T1 of best of 5 today? Obviously alluding to T1's historic performances in best of 5 series. Clean 3-0 obviously for Afreeca, dominating. We just mentioned that against KT. And now, yeah, I like the fact that it's mentioned as an uphill battle. And the carries on both of these teams is going to be interesting. Obviously, Kana has been very stable for T1 in a lot of their recent series. Faker is back here today, but then like you're mentioning, the new AD carry player down in the bottom lane. We're probably going to talk about him in just a bit once he ends up appearing on the screen, but we'll see what ends up happening. I am very excited for this. Also, LM returning in the jungle.
Yeah, LM there. Cuz not going to be there anymore. I know there's a lot of memes floating around about Cuz, but I don't think he's necessarily been the worst player on the team or anything like that. But LM definitely having a little bit more of an explosive play style, and that might come out with some of the young blood that they do have available to them. Having a look at some of the stats here, Afreeca regional qualifier stats looking damn good. But that's what happens when you win every single game. And T1 struggling a little bit in the summer split to really get a lot of those kills in their matches. Certainly one of the slower teams when it came to our summer statistics, but we'll see whether all of the changes are going to affect it. I think that a lot of these stats are almost irrelevant given how much the roster has changed moving into this match.
Yeah, the team's not the same, so I feel like the stats and probably even the approach towards the game is going to be very different. And there it is, Kana, LM, Faker, Gumayushi, and Effort. Now, a lot of people are probably wondering, who is Gumayushi? He's, as you mentioned, been very top of the standings for a very long time, and it's been mentioned by Voldemort on his stream that Gumayushi is one of the best mechanical players in all of Korea, but probably the best mechanical player on T1, even though he's been in their academy system.
Yeah, he's been extraordinary for a very long time, but hasn't necessarily been able to play. It's been hard because I think he came of age relatively recently, but Teddy's just a really good AD carry, right? So it's hard to replace him. Now they're looking to switch it up, and now the two veterans of the team are Effort and Faker, instead of what was before Effort and Gumayushi. Sorry, Effort and Teddy, that were the oldest, most long-standing players on the team. So an interesting switch-up when it comes to the louder voices and you know, the more respected members of the team for this particular lineup. This one, however, nothing has really changed apart from Dread being in the jungle. It was Spirit that really saved the team with a lot of his Lilia play yesterday. So looking forward to seeing what Dread's going to be able to bring. And maybe we've got Spirit sitting alongside with the coach getting all of those downloads to make sure that he gets the jungle paths correct for the second match. But Dread versus Ellum is an exciting one. But Canna versus Keen, the two powerhouses towards the top side, the double letters really going nuts there. And Keen having a really good series yesterday as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a pretty important matchup because everything else is pretty much a question mark. The jungle dynamic is going to be very interesting to see. Ellum hasn't played in a little while, and then the bot lane is going to be very hard to predict. But if Kana can be the rock that T1 need him to be today, that's going to be really big in offsetting Afreeca here in this series, because Keen can really just take over games on his own. And it becomes very problematic, though, when he's not able to get the ball rolling.
The thing that I do like is that they're bringing LM in now with against Dread. And Dread's going to be playing aggressively. We know that that's the only mode that he has, and LM certainly has been a little bit more early game. And when you've got Dread on the roster, Keen picks up a whole lot more of these early game carries. So Canna is going to be under a lot more pressure earlier, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do with their new and slightly changed up jungle decision here on T1's side. But it's showing that they've got a lot of strings to their bow. It's only Canna and Effort that haven't really been subbed around this year, and we do know that there are players standing behind them also. So T1 certainly pulling out all the stops when it comes to trying to find the dream roster to get them through this gauntlet. And they're no stranger to gauntlets. You know, best of fives, that's the territory for T1. And unfortunately, they didn't manage to get past the best of three in the playoffs. So now this is their first best of five of summer. I'm looking forward to seeing whether the T1 BO5 buff is going to come through, because if it does, like if this is a blowout, Gen G are going to be sweating. I know you're a bit of a T1 fan when it comes to the third seed for Worlds, but I think that Gen G should not be underestimated, especially when we're talking about bottom sides of the map. You know, Gumayusi coming through, he's going to be debuting here up against Mystic, but Ruler is a whole different beast. So I know I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but it's certainly a lot to think about when it comes to who's going to be our favorite moving towards the World Championship.
And I like that you mentioned that Gen G is the final boss of the gauntlet, as that's going to be a tough match for both of these two teams, obviously going into tomorrow. And I think depending on how T1 manages to look here against Afreeca, or how Afreeca manages to look against T1, can give us a much better indicator of probably what to expect in that series, especially when you look at the context surrounding how Gen G lost in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It feels like almost anything's possible.
Exactly. Gen G losing there, it felt like it was stolen away from them. Unfortunately for Gen G, they've been a little bit plagued by some out-of-the-rift situations when it comes to their playoffs runs all year. And hopefully, when we get to the regional qualifier final, it's all just going to be tickety-boo, and we're not going to need to worry about it. Damn, that's a fun word to say. But here we are in the Abandon Pick for the very first game of this series. This is going to be the semi-final, if you like, as already Kalista and the Nautilus taken away, and there's Ezreal as well. No Mystic shots for Mystic, unfortunately, as Twisted Fate and the Azir taken off the board. Caitlyn standing out like a sore thumb at this point in time, and I think that giving that to T1's really dangerous, because Canna's a great Ornn player, and they are going to let it through because they have to ban away the Lucian. Set is going to be the first hover here, though, for T1, and I feel like this could be a mistake.
Yeah, the set is coming in. In theory, he's able to be flexed into multiple roles, but seeing him B1 would be a little surprising. Caitlyn now getting hovered, and I can't think of a better marksman champion to pick if you're being touted as the best mechanical player that the team has to offer, because Caitlyn can obviously single-handedly take over games. So I think this is going to be a very nice champion to see Gumayusi debut on. Afreeca instantly responding.
Yeah, it's going to be the Akali and the Ashe. And Keen likely to be the one piloting the Akali, certainly more of a Keen flavor rather than Fly. As we'll see whether T1 round out their bottom lane and decide to pick up the Ornn. I feel like Caitlyn Ornn is just such a powerful combo these days. And Canna is a brilliant Ornn player, very stable there towards the top side, and blocks picks like Renekton from coming through. As Caitlyn Lux is going to be the decision here. Gumayusi and Effort going to be down there on the bottom side with those picks. Of course, Faker can play the Lux, but likely to be that bottom lane already picked up. And now what is Faker going to lock away? Could be a jungle priority pick, or they could just go with Renekton themselves, and that is what Canna's going to go for.
And Renekton does get locked in for T1. Now, in theory, it's able to be flexed mid and top, depending on what would Afreeca end up picking. So we'll see where it does end up landing. But this is a lot of physical damage on T1, and so I'm curious if champions like Evelynn and Karthus and Lilia are going to be on the ban card here by Afreeca.
Well, I mean, there's 5 AP junglers that,
there's so many
that need to be banned, right? And so it's going to be very, very hard for Afreeca to get rid of all of them. Of course, I'm talking about, Evelynn, Karthus, Nidalee, Gragas,
Lilia,
and Lilia as well. So certainly a lot of options when it comes to getting some magic damage in there. So Tier 1 not really sweating just yet. Nidalee, though, is going to be banned away because of course, the power couple that is the crocodile and the cat. And alliteration as well, absolutely beautiful. As there's the Volibear to be taken off the board, just banning some strong junglers. Not sure what Dread's been playing recently. I do have some stats for you, though. Gumayusi, unfortunately, has fallen down the standings. He was certainly sitting around top 5 here in the Korea solo queue for quite some time. But I think he's been scrimming a lot with the team, so hasn't necessarily been able to hold on to his top spot. Currently, like rank 93 or something like that. But he does have 2 recent losses on Caitlyn, so you can think about that as you will. Syla's going to be the last ban here from Afreeca. And that's sort of alluding to something here. Of course, the Twisted Fate is already banned, so it's not like they're putting through a coverage ban or anything like that.
Yeah,
Look forward to seeing what Fly's going to be playing.
Little surprised by the set, but we'll see what Afreeca is going to lock in here. Yeah, let's see if they just end up actually picking their jungler here. I think that would be the best so that you retain Akali, flex mid and top.
Yeah, I think Lilia is sort of standing out at the moment as that power jungler, especially with Volibear banned away. Although Hecarim has certainly been screeching his way towards the top of the tables. Did have a loss yesterday, but we know how powerful this champion is if he gets out of control. And even in that game, the Hecarim was very, very strong. So Afreeca going to be going back to it here. LM thinking about what he wants to play into it. Looks like Ori in the Blind Forest is coming out. No. Let's see where LM's going to stick. And I think Lilia is a champion that makes some sense. A lot of clippity-clopping around the jungle here in this particular game, if that's going to be the choice. But they are cycling. 1 second to go. And LM is going to try and put the horse in the stable, locking down the J4 so he can try and cataclysm that guy after he ults.
This one's a little bit bizarre, but I guess you can understand that, yes, if you do Cataclysm him after he ultimates, then you can lock him in, and obviously Jarvan can be quite problematic for Ashe, but I'm just curious, are they just going to go Galio Jarvan? No, they're going to go very generic. Oh, okay, well,
this is a wombo combo comp, and this is going to be all about Caitlyn doing damage. And when it gets to the late game, it's only Gumayusi. Like, if you ever have a debut game, like, this is the draft that you'd be scared of the most, because the microscope is 100% on this Caitlyn player. I'm looking forward to seeing what Gumayusi can do with it, because, yeah, this is definitely all about him.
And the Ornn being hovered right now by Afreeca, and this is going to mean it's probably Ornn versus Renekton in top lane, which means that Galio gets a pretty good matchup into Akali in mid. For what that's worth.
This might be the swap, because we saw Afreeca do this yesterday, and Fly was a mid lane Ornn player. He might just be going towards the top lane himself because he's the better Ornn player, Keen the far better Akali player.
Yeah.
And so likely still going to be on top. But this is Afreeca's new flexibility that they have. They allow them to always have a carry in a solo lane, and it doesn't matter which lane it's in, because Keen and Fly have been swapping around so much. I love this out of the team.
Well, it does seem like Keen mid could be a thing, and I feel like this is a thing in the future that is going to become probably more common, where top and mid laner sort of dies as a title, and it becomes more about solo laner, where players become interchangeable just based on which champions they're able to play, because ultimately League is just a knowledge-based game. It's not able to just be cemented into just an isolated role, and you just should be good at that. You should be proficient at the game itself. So seeing Keen go into mid lane here would be pretty interesting on the Akali. Like you mentioned, he's a lot better at it than Fly would be. And we'll see how Fly matches up against Kana in the top lane. But this is a very, very all-in team composition for Gumayusi to try to carry T1 with. And I think this is going to be very telling, Alice.
It certainly is. I do like the Jarvan and Galio combo. I hope that Faker and Elam have been putting the time in together to make sure that they have that synergy, because it's going to be all about the Jarvan going in and then the heroic entrance over the top, giving Gumayusi all of that space to utilize all of that range. But here we are into game number 1, T1 versus Afreeca. This is our second last match, and actually my final cast of the year for the LCK. Likely that I'll be back for 2021. Don't worry, guys. You are going to see me again. But yeah, my last LCK broadcast. So it's been a pleasure, LS. And looking forward to next year.
Yeah. I have 2 casts left for 2020.
Yep, you're going to be on tomorrow with the good old Val Danalist.
Yep. So we'll see how that ends up going. We'll see who is going to be in the finals versus Gen G tomorrow. Taking a look at the player runes really quickly. And we still don't have an indication yet of who is going where at this point in time. Not really any sinning happening in the runes. Absolute focus over Gathering Storm for Gumayusi on AD carry.
Interesting.
A little bit surprising there.
No surprise with the Nimbus cloak, though.
Yeah.
All right, and it is going to be the Akali in the mid lane as we expected. Pardon me. I was actually going back and thinking about it, and to be perfectly honest, Afreeca don't have bad matchups either way, but Akali versus Renekton can be a little bit scary for the Akali, just with all of that early game power that Renekton has. So just picking up on building a Bramble Burst and never dying is probably a safer option, as Akali does deal pretty well with the Galio in mid lane as well, given the fact that they do get to go into that melee matchup.
And right now, Faker, he crashes first wave, goes and gets a ward on the Raptor camp. They want to know exactly where Dread is on the Hecarim at all times. And you can see what Gumayusi and Effort are doing. They're piling up 2 of the waves. They're going to wait for the 3rd wave, and then they'll crash. Now, with Caitlyn and Lux, generally a lot of players will not go for cheater recalls, especially not when you haven't dealt any damage to the opponents and you're perfectly healthy yourself. He also already has the call. So we might just see the Caitlyn and Lux try to poke underneath the turret. And you can see Jarvan, he's on the right-hand side of the map. They know where Hecarim is. And all that Elam has to do is make sure to protect Caitlyn and Lux, and a lot of damage can be dealt early on.
Yep, they're already down there. There is a ward behind T1 right now, which I don't know what that's going to mean necessarily. I don't know whether we're going to go for like level 3 teleports or anything like that from an Ornn, but that is an interesting ward placement for this stage of the game, and probably thinking about a Jarvan level 2 gank or something like that that can be set up with early wave crashes like this. As it is just going to be Rift Scuttler taken down by Elam. He's just going to be grabbing that one as soon as it spawns. There it is. And Dread is just rampaging his way through the jungle. And it's all just feeling pretty standard right now, as Fake is going for a bit of an early recall as the lane resets, but no, he's going to cancel it.
And that would have been a nice recall for Faker to actually try to take, if he could have gotten it. And it looks like Jarvan's actually just going to have the better end of the jungle opening. He's going to manage to get double crab. Now, the one thing, though, is that Hecarim's camps are going to respawn sooner, and they'll be higher level. Whereas the Raptor and Golem camp, hold on, though.
Yep, nice knock-up, but in goes Dread. He's looking for the knockback. He's not going to get it, though, as the rocket grab's also going to be not quite long enough. That one was buffed as well, Ben, but not able to actually line it up. And you saw exactly what Dread was trying to do, but they got double flashes, right? So still a very successful gank here for the Afreeca jungler.
Yeah, and we know that this is basically a forced play out of Hecarim because he doesn't have any other options. He doesn't want to just recall and then go back into power farming. And so seeing them lose all their summoners here, it's very painful. They have to respect the fact that Hecarim could still be here because Blitzcrank has flash. So this could actually be very scary. They're genuinely playing with fire, but they do think that he has recalled. It would be a pretty sinful maneuver for Dread to still be here.
Oh yeah. Although they would definitely be dead, interestingly enough.
And in top lane, Renekton, I mean, he's up 24 farm right now. Fly is just getting bulldozed. There is a giant wave in front of his turret, though, so we'll see what he's at the end of this. Dread's been spotted out yet again on a ward. Everything is very stable right now, and I love what Gumayushi's doing. He's going for the tier 2 boots, for the mobility inside of the laning phase, for spacing against Mystic and Ben, rather than just powering straight into the BF sword.
Also allows you to push the lane just that little bit faster as well, with the amount of extra auto attacks they're able to get off. So I like that as well, going for the cull at the same time that he, of course, started with. And so, yeah, pretty comfortable, all things considered. The thing I want to talk to you about is, I guess, the scaling factor between these two teams. And I'm seeing an Ornn, I'm seeing a Hecarim, and I'm thinking that Afreeca is going to be pretty comfortable in the late game, but I'm seeing the team fight capability of T1 and thinking that they're also pretty happy with scaling. And you can see as these two teams are playing it out, it's been pretty cool, calm, and collected on both sides. Feels like both teams happy to play for a mid to late game style win condition.
Well, it seems as though Afreeca are just waiting for the mid-game. T1, though, getting the first dragon is pretty good news for them, given the way that their team composition is going to play out. Threatening Soul Point is going to be very problematic, and given that Cloud Dragon's second, it means that we have a Spicy Soul. Fly, Kana's not in lethal.
No, but he does ult anyway. So Fly and Kana just going to be trading ults here. Kana will be able to swipe up this wave, and Fly is still very far behind.
He is light years behind, and the other thing is that he built a Balmy Cinder as his first item. So his itemization is going to be a little bit gimped. Hold on, we got a little bit of a trade.
That's actually the engage coming up from Elm. Heroic Entrance going to get the knock up onto Ben, and Ben, unfortunately, did not realize that there were potentially 4 people surrounding him in that instance. So he was fishing for a hook, and instead he got caught.
I'm not sure what Afreeca was doing, Alice. Down there in the river, it seems like they completely blanked that there was a Galio in the game. And that's just a very easy first blood pickup. And pretty much all around right now, T1 are just ahead in every position. And I really like what Gumayushi's doing. Basically saying, you know what, even though we are Caitlyn and Lux and we like to push and poke and get turret plates and whatnot, they're realizing the benefit of pulling the wave and freezing it as a means to starve their opponent and cause a larger net difference between the two. And Faker is coming in there with the Galio ultimate, getting the kill.
Ooh. That was almost really cool, but didn't quite work out there for Ben. He's now waiting for another rocket grab to come back off cooldown. Afreeca do finally get this wave shoved towards the turret. And the CS gap is going to be widened here in favor of Gumayushi as he clears out all of those minions with a very nice Peacemaker. And Dread looking to steal away a red buff. And should be able to do that as Element is on the other side of the map. Justice Punch, not going to find any targets there as Faker just presses his taunt button for fun.
And we can see Elam now, he's going to go over and start the Rift Herald. And he probably feels like, well, actually, no, he's just going to click. Well, yes, he is starting it. I'm not totally sure. The timing is not really aligned here, and you can see they're rotating the bot lanes now.
Yeah, it's a good knock up there from Faker, who gets a lot of control based on his Aftershock. In comes Effort. 4 members around this Rift Herald right now as the Ornn is up towards the top side, very close to having his ultimate back available. As Dread wants to come in for a steal. Light Binding is down. There is the steal away. Fly gets a great double knock up there in the backline as Effort is going to look like going down first, and it is Mystic that grabs that kill already. 2 here for Afreeca, and they stole away the Rift Herald. Faker going to have to flash to get himself out of the way. Brilliant flash forward from Ben to deny the Justice Punch escape. And now Faker's just going to try and hobble his way, but he's not going to get there. Death Chamber for you, my friend, and 3 kills for Afreeca and Rift Herald steal.
And this is what I was just talking about, where I said the waves are not really aligned right here. For T1 to go for this kind of a play, Elam, he has all of his jungle camps up. There's no reason to just randomly go for a Rift Herald. All the lanes are very stable, and the map is just stable. And they end up going for it, and they get clapped and punished. And we see this time and time again. I recently tweeted about this over the weekend, watching the LCS finals. Similar thing. It just feels like teams don't really understand what Herald ends up doing in the mass majority of cases. And here, they're just stuck between a rock and a hard place. They want to help out Elam, they want to help out Kana, but the timing in this game is not aligned for a play like this. And Afreeca, they just capitalize and punish T1 really hard.
Yeah, it was really beautifully done. I like that Ben didn't care about his low health bar. He was stopping Faker from getting out of there no matter what. And really nice bounce back from an Afreeca that, you know, were looking like they were giving away a few things. Not necessarily having the control that they really want. We do need to mention, we've been talking a lot about, you know, Gumayushi and how excited we are to see him, but Mystic is on his Ashe, and this is his pick, that he hasn't necessarily found the same level of success in this season than he's been known for, especially with his play on WE over in the LPL. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this Ashe is going to be able to do, especially now that she's claimed the CS advantage, 1-0-1, very close to Essence Reaver, a build I believe Def debuted here in the LCK and has looked like the more powerful one, especially when it comes to 2-item spikes here in the LCK. And Afreeca bouncing back nicely, but still without a gold lead at this stage.
And I feel like T1, the reason that they're still retaining the gold lead even after that blunder at Rift Herald, a lot of it is due to Kana right now up in top lane with his lane kingdom that is currently present. Almost has Blade of the...
Yeah, it's a little bit of a worry because I thought Bramblebest would be coming in, but not going to happen. Mountain Drake going to be coming forward, and this is like the dream for Afreeca. Both Hecarim and Ornn absolutely love this dragon, as Fly is going to get stunned.
The flip side for T1 as well, if they start stacking Mountain Drakes, Hecarim, Ornn, Akali engages, they're just going to be invalidated. Pretty much. It's going to be near impossible for their team composition to reliably take a team fight and then somehow win, especially because Renekton will eventually start getting tanky, Jarvan's already going to be tanky, Galio is tanky, all the barriers on Lux. And if her and Caitlyn become tanks as well, things become very problematic. So it's a pretty spicy dragon all around, whereas Infernal, for both parties, even if T1 hypothetically got Infernal Dragon, Afreeca could still just stomp them in a very quick engage, where Infernal Soul never goes off and has
that's a good
effectiveness.
Point. And I do like that you bring up the Lux. Shields become, of course, so much more valuable when you do get all of those defensive stats. So certainly very high value for T1 at the same time. I just can't help looking at an Ornn and then getting scared about, you know, 600 armor and things like that. Great rocket grab there onto Effort, who will have to flash, and he is going to do so, as he will eventually clear out that ward. So just the flash coming off the Lux, but that's food for the Hecarim, right? Like, I don't know what the Lux is supposed to do against Dread at that stage, as Keen, he was underneath the turret. Just having a good time by the looks of things.
And meanwhile, Kana up there in top lane, and Sunfire Cape was completed by Fly. I like that you mentioned the lack of Bramblebest actually being picked up by Ornn. There's only one thing that's inevitable in League of Legends Atlas, and that is Boris. And it's always a pleasure to show up.
Yep, he is back with a vengeance. We saw him, you know, he took a day off in a few of those days in the playoffs, but no, he's back. Afreeca have wrestled themselves back a slight gold advantage, but that is not from the help of Fly, as he takes a lot of damage there underneath the turret. Does have a couple of refillable pot charges, as that's a good lifeline. Combo is going to land as the heroic entrance. Not sure whether it was entirely necessary, but Ben is going to get knocked up right on the edge. Justice Punch going to miss as Keen is in here. Ben going to be taken down first, but Afreeca not going to go for any sort of re-engage. Dread just a little bit too low. And Fly forced back to his inner turret and is going to go back home. This is an absolute disaster on the top side, and a really good re-debut here for Kana in this particular game. Mystic going to get chunked with an ace in the hole.
Fly is just getting completely dominated. Normally we don't see stuff like this happen in the LCK when it's mostly entirely being done in isolation, but this is real right now. We had he just dinged level 10, but we had a 2-level disparity between these two players right now. A 53 CS advantage for Kana at 14 minutes is absolutely ridiculous.
And he has the highest farm in the game as well. He's just been farming very, very well. His effort over the wall, really nice combo has been, hate to see it. Unfortunately tagged by the edge.
Dread did manage to get the red buff. Unfortunately, Cataclysm does not seemingly want to take the red. As Dread is level 9, still doesn't have the Trinity Force yet. Looks like Renekton going to be moving into the Black Cleaver as his next item, most likely.
Yeah, it should be a death dance after that, or something like that. As Gumayushi does have his Infinity Edge already complete, but probably wants a couple of items before he's going to be all-powerful. Mystic building towards his Runar's Hurricane for item number 2, which is how this build, of course, works. As Afreeca, I do like their team fight, but they haven't been able to rally quite like T1 have in these skirmishes. I feel like T1's setup around the map has been better, but Afreeca, just with their composition, are going to be better with these 5v5s. His arrow is going to fly forward. It's going to be avoided, though, there by Elm, and that is going to be the second Rift Herald taken down by T1. So if at first you don't succeed, try again.
All right. Well, they do end up getting it. They're going to rotate back now into mid lane. And... okay, the cannon, it is going to get capped. Caitlyn will get the cannon.
Yes.
All right, everything's safe.
Ashe will be able to get the turret, though. So there's that. Definitely good news. Mystic going to continue to power ahead. As far as that farm is concerned, it was 13, but with this wave going down, it's still going to be very, very close between the two marksmen. Keen, wonder what this build is going to be. Could, of course, be Leandri's, or the Dastardly Morello, or second item, Void Star, for some reason. But that's not going to happen.
Well, Mountain Dragon is up and available. Faker's up in top lane right now, though. He might just shove out one more wave. I don't think he's waiting to complete anything. And so maybe he just shoves this wave and then starts running down. He does have his ultimate available, so it's not like he needs to use teleport to get into this fight. But if you look at the items across the board right now, it's not that bad for Afreeca in this fight. This is the closest that Ornn and Renekton are probably going to be for quite some time. You can see Faker moving down now. Any sort of a phalanx angle for T1 is going to be very favorable for them.
Well, they also just want to be able to have their Gargoyle in range as T1 currently holding aggro, but Afreeca do control the river right now as Shirley is going to knock down the outer turret on the bottom side of the map. You can see Afreeca not really perturbed. They want to guarantee this dragon, and there's the Ornhorn. Good double knockup is going to land, and that's the rocket grab they were looking for. But Elm is immediately going to go golden. The avoidance there on the heroic entrance, though, is Faker not going to grab the highest value taunt, but there's the first kill coming through from Gumayushi. Flash forward for the light binding, but it is going to miss. Afreeca do get themselves out of the way. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Both junglers are dead as the teleport comes forward. Canna trying to go 1 versus 4, and it's going to be successful as Keen is wiped from the rift. Now Mystic trying to fight this one back. Good volley. It's going to get a lot of slows, but now with that man advantage, T1 should be able to take down this Mountain Drake, and a double charge coming through for Shirley.
Double charge coming through for Shirley, and they're going to get the Mountain. They end up being victorious in that team fight as well. Being even a little bit reserved with some of their Summoner Spell usage. Faker probably could have gotten a little bit more if he elected to use Flash right away. And now this is going to be 5 more minutes of scaling for the Caitlyn.
Yeah, this is really scary for Afreeca. Let's have a look at this fight one more time.
So you can see Fly just randomly starts the Ornhorn. Dragon was nowhere near low enough for them to try to go for this play to force it so that T1 couldn't go for some sort of a smite fight or a counter engage. Dread goes in with the ultimate, but just doesn't have it. Gumayushi nets into Afreeca, just barely missing the binding. Otherwise, Fly was definitely a goner there as well. Kana teleports in behind. Caitlyn ultimate comes in. Kana there with the slice and dice, able to pick up Keen. And now as everything resets, T1, they have a 2,000 gold advantage at this point in time. Caitlyn making her way towards her second item. Call was already completed.
Advantage for Mystic when it comes to items, but he does need to finish off this Infinity Edge before he gets any ornament value, which means no defensive items or anything like that, as Ace in the Hole is going to land. No way of avoiding it, of course. As, yeah, Mystic is going to be pretty killable for a lot of this game. He's got a big investment to make.
Well, Gumayushi here just going to shove out the mid lane, and there's just going to be a bit of downtime now, most likely. We're just going to play ping pong with all the side lanes. Faker almost has the Zanya's Hourglass complete, already has the Seekers as well as the Fiendish Codex. Kana has completed the Black Cleaver will probably move into the Death Stance next. A little bit of Boris on the table here for Fly. Picking up the
he's been
Iceborne
attacked
Gauntlet.
by Boris this game. I don't know what happened.
Moly.
You know how there's just some people where they walk into a shop and the salesman just owns them, you know? Like, you're just like a little bit naive. I feel like that's Fly this game, you know? The shopkeeper was like, I know, this is the most expensive, but look at all of these extra bells and whistles that you have available to you. 20% CDR. Look at all of that extra armor you're going to pick up. And you'll have mana for days, Fly. Mana for days, as the arrow is going to be avoided with a step to the right there by Effort.
Rick
Very nicely
Boris Harrison, welcome to Scam Stars, is basically what's going on here. So the funniest thing about the Iceborne Gauntlet, and I know that Bwippo was one of the pro players that talked about this recently, the passive that you get from Abyssal Mask, the amplified damage, just makes all of Ornn deal so much more, not even including if other teammates are in close proximity. And Ornn Spellblade proc is not super valuable. You don't need the mana that you get from the item, and the armor resistances are not all that you need, especially because Infernal Mask gives you so much HP.
Infernal
from the
Mask
item
is just
itself.
extraordinarily efficient stats-wise.
Yes.
Like, if you can build it, you should always build it. I don't even think you need to care about whether or not the team has magic damage. And I think, like, even for that argument, Dominus damage is enough, you know? Like, do it. You know, there's the magic damage. Don't even worry about it. But, I mean, Faker's there. He's going to be doing damage, especially to the front line. So I don't think there's any excuse to pick up the Iceborne Gauntlet this game. Like, even Locket of the Iron Solari. If you really don't want to build an Abyssal Mask, build Locket instead.
Just always build Abyssal Mask. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, obviously.
This is probably, if there is a Ornn game that you watch how not to play Ornn from laning phase to itemization, I think this is definitely it, out of Fly.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's having a bit of an issue. But we'll see. He is almost level 14. He's going to be able to start bestowing upgrades. And it looks like Keen is actually going for Morellonomicon, so...
Oh, no.
You think Boris has a job, actually.
Yeah, I think Boris actually set up shop at the Freak Up studio. Yeah. That's where he has his kiosk. It's Summoner's Rift and the Freak Up studio. So if you're ever like watching the GSL or something like that here in Korea, guys, make sure you give a wave over to Boris. Just don't listen to a word that he says. Okay? He's a nice guy. He'll just he'll not say what you need to hear, you know? He'll say maybe what you want to hear, which is, you know, that Morello is always a good choice. And no, if you want to upgrade your Iceborne Gauntlet, that's up to you. And stuff like that. You know, you don't want to hear that heresy.
Buy my book indeed, as Mountain Drake is going to be up in 5 seconds. Faker.
Oh, good taunt there onto Keen, but Shuriken backflip comes back. Keen not going to trade back too well as good double knockup comes forward there from Fly. Arrow going to connect there onto Effort, but not much follow-up. Mystic going to flash out of the way of the final spark, and he's free hitting now. As Canna goes gold and Gumayushi getting the damage down though. That's the double kill. Fly now in trouble, who's been completely blocked off. Gumayushi actually going to get hooked in, but that's not what they wanted because it allowed him to have better position on these auto attacks, and T1 wipe the floor with Afreeca. That's going to give him a Baron, and that should be the game.
Call an ambulance, but not for him, Atlas, is basically just happened, as T1 with really good macro here. They're going to have the Renekton solo down the Mountain Dragon while the other members go over to the Baron. And this is basically everything that you could possibly want. And with the itemization that Afreeca ended up going for, they're going to stunt themselves so much. They don't have an ornament outside of Hecarim as well. Obviously, Infinity Edge is coming in next, but things are looking really lights out for Afreeca here in this game number 1. Caitlyn 3-0-6 right now inside of this game. Absolutely massive. Not sure why Fly...
he almost got that steal, man.
Just turn it off.
Because he has the extra auto damage from his Iceborne Gauntlet. So he was going for the steal on the Rift Scholar. Didn't quite get there. Let's have a look at this again. This colossal failure from Afreeca.
Really good exhaust by Effort onto Keen, slicing his damage. And just look, there's no one that can reach Caitlyn. And so she just has the free deal in the bag. Eventually they get pulled in, Ben. He's seen better days.
Yeah.
아래 좀만 봐줘. 아래.
Faker played that really, really well, by the way, on the front line.
오른 봐. 아래 괜찮아. 오른 봐봐. 오른
It's
봐봐.
good, it's good.
천천히.
Go slow, go slow.
위에 들어가.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Really, really good control by the Caitlyn. Mouse is very nice to watch.
애쉬.
You can just see
바로 가자.
how
바로 가자. 야, 레릭 쏠려고 나머지 바로 가자.
what a nice trophy.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. Sort of reminded me, actually, of watching Ruler and his mouse control. And that is definitely a compliment to the young 80 carry out of T1. Ruler, it's almost superhuman watching him utilize his mouse. As T1, they are just looking to try and put this game to bed. Currently close to an 8,000 gold lead. They have Soul Point and it's Mountain Soul as well. As now Afreeca looking to try and cut them off, but it is going to be a 5v5. And Afreeca say, well, we don't have very much money. As Ace in the Hole comes down, a lot of damage there onto Keen. That is like two abilities. There's the Cataclysm. Heroic Entrance going to come down as well. And Final Spark going to help take down the Ashe. Somehow Gumayusi is the one that's able to do it. Canna there with his Dominus still running, just looking to try and utilize it somewhere. But I have a feeling that this game is well and truly over. And Afreeca, unfortunately, just too far behind.
Yeah, I mean, everything is just going so well for T1 in this opening series. They're up 8,000 gold here, sieging now the bottom tier 3 turret. And with Afreeca's comp being the way that it is, the double mountain on the side of T1, there's no way to threaten this Caitlyn. I feel like it's looking pretty grim here for Afreeca in game number 1. These situations that would have to unfold for them to come back is super unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very, very tough. Also, you know, Luxury Guardian Angel coming through from Canna as well, so his ability to disrupt the front line is going to be even more difficult. Gumayusi has the most eclectic collection of items I've seen for a while, but no, he's going to make that Storm Razor complete. Wanted to get through some of these heavy armor targets, and that's why the Last Whisper was completed. But this was just the Cataclysmic Entrance, and no way for Afreeca to do anything. The Wombo too strong. As Arrow is not going to find the mark there, but Canna is likely to fall. Gonna take Dread with him though, as he gets back to this minion wave. Hook is going to go wide, as Canna's pretty fast, but he will be slowed down. There's the knockup. Guardian Angel gonna be popped. Faker gonna be coming in here as Ellen finds the backside, and they took too long to take down the Crocodile. Mystic gonna be taken out. The Croc eventually falls, but T1 now in position to try and fight the flash forward, the life binding. It will be Fly falling down as Ben's going to get knocked up as well. Ellen playing very beautifully right now as Keen looking to try and find his way forward. Life binding doesn't connect. Neither does the Justice Punch, but there's the double kill for Gumayusi. And T1 playing with their food, smacking them with their wallet. As we've called this game over a few times, just taking T1 a little while to put the last nail in this coffin.
And it looks like this is going to be the final siege for what is gonna be the end of game number 1. You can see T1 are threatening the turrets right now. Towers are gonna be very quick to fall here.
Yeah, as Caitlyn does a hell of a lot of damage.
What Dread and Front, no, they're losing some of the minions though, so we'll see what ends up happening. Kana doesn't have teleport, and T1's actually gonna be repelled.
Yeah, well, I mean, repelled, or they've got a lot of money and they want to spend it. The Mountain Drake is going to be coming back up again in 20 seconds time. As Dread definitely wanting to stop some of these backs, does so with a Rampage as Gumayusi's going to get out of that brush. And oh my god. Okay, Ellen. That was definitely ballsy. As Faker looking to try and steal away this blue buff. 5 seconds on the Mountain Drake as Dread looks for the Gargoyle, but the horse is going to not be as amazing as you want. That's a 1,000 damage crit as Gumayusi's going to steal away the blue, sets up his wall of traps. And yeah, Dread's not going to be able to get in here, so this will just be Mountain Soul as we predicted. Helm over to the side, not going to be able to get any knockups, but there is the Cataclysm onto Dread. Ultimate is going to be able to get him out of there, but now it's not going to be used in the fight as, oh my god, Gumayusi just pops Keen. Decent knock up there from Fly, but unfortunately just has nothing else that he can really offer. Faker's going to get rid of Mystic. A double kill now as he gets rid of the entire bottom lane. And Fly is going to go golden. And the Peacemaker was funny, but I think that the auto attacks do more damage here out of the Caitlyn. And now T1 are going to win the game. LS, I've said it 4 times. Maybe I'll be right this time.
Well, Faker and Hecarim here. Dread gonna have a little bit of a fight. Oh,
Yep,
okay,
looks
that's
like
just...
a little bit of tilt. As, oh, that's a cool look. Love it.
And that's gonna be it for game number 1 between T1 and Afreeca, and the lineup looking really good.
And when it comes to debut games, you'd say 9-0-8's pretty good. You know? I reckon you'd be pretty happy with that one. Very nicely done from Gumayushi. He is, of course, playing the coveted Caitlyn, a very, very strong pick these days. But certainly going to be helping to settle the nerves for the new AD carry. Not new for T1, of course, has been on this roster for a really long time and playing with these players for a very long time. But playing on stage and playing in one of these big high-pressure matches is definitely a very different story. So congratulations. Debut scoreline, definitely better than any I've seen for quite some time.
Yeah, and I feel like the T1, I mean, in this opening game, even though they had the Rift Herald macro blunder, the way that they operated as a unit was really, really good. You can tell that they were all pretty much on the same page at all points inside of the game. And that's one of the things that T1 in a lot of recent weeks has been lacking, is that they did not seemingly have a very real identity with one another. They seemed like they were forcing things that didn't need to be forced at particular points, but in this opening game, they seemed a lot more in unison all around.
Yeah, and I wonder whether this means that Spirit's going to be coming in early. I think that Dread had a pretty lackluster game, to be perfectly honest, but the main thing that Afreeca needs is not to have Fly up against Canna, because that matchup looked like an absolute disaster, and I think that Keen would be better suited to trying to keep down Canna than anything else, because like what happened on the top side of the map should not have happened.
No, I mean, it never should have happened whatsoever. So it's probably going to be that Keen has to go back up into top lane if this is going to be the story of what's happening, especially because Ornn is good into Renekton.
Yeah,
that's why getting 50 CS by 14 minutes and single-handedly paying for Boris's new mansion is probably not a very good indicator of what's to maybe come in game 2 if Fly was to stay up there in the top lane.
Yeah. And Boris doesn't need another mansion. I mean, we've seen in other regions just how much work he gets. So don't do that. Don't do that, guys. Boris doesn't deserve it. This I loved out of Faker, actually, the Justice Punch, able to follow up and guarantee the rest of those kills. But of course, that was a bit of tidy up. More than anything else, Keen chunked out before he could do anything. And then just the classic combos and nothing that Afreeca could do.
I mean, things are a little bit questionable, obviously, for Afreeca in this opening game. And like you're mentioning, with Spirit potentially coming back in game number 2 early, maybe we'll get a little bit of a different spin on the draft, a little bit of coordination difference. I just felt like they were never really able to get a footing on their own accord. And I think that a really big problem of it is that they were mostly playing 4 versus 5 because their Ornn was so stuck. And that creates a lot of problems in mid-game and even in later stages of the game. One of the things that stands out to me is also Fly's Ornn engage when Dragon was at 2,700 HP.
Yeah, let's have a listen to this.
위에 좋아 위에 좋아 아래 봐 아래 봐
기절 넣었어.
아래 잡았어
아래 잡다. 아래 좋아.
쌈바
어.
다 뛰었고 오른다 오른
끝내자 이거.
가면 끝나
여기까지 잡자. 야 죽여놔.
되지
내가 먹을래. 내가
GG.
놔주고. 여기 놔주고. 아니 내가 먹을래. 내가 오케이. 형 먹어라.
바텀으로 가 바텀으로 바텀
개라.
헷갈린 궁 있나?
없어
맞았어.
끝났다.
오케이 미래 좀만 봐줘
너는 가는 중.
나머지 바텀 와
죽여놨어.
굿 잘했다
Good. I can
우리가 이거
translate
더
that.
잘하니까 차분하게 하면 이기대
아 이거
근데 전령 때
천천히만 해.
그냥 걸었으면 이겼을 것 같아. 먼저 걸었으면 이겼을 것 같아.
먼저 걸었어야 되는데
전령 치지 말고 나랑
이제-
가려고.
Well, not
talking
exactly
about Rift Herald
overexcited
at
or
the
anything like that out of T1, but congratulations, definitely necessary here as Faker topped the damage in the entire game by a very large margin.
Yeah,
Nice. I
which
guess that's
is-
what happens when you just throw out damage in lane.
Yeah, it's pretty good performance by him on the Galio. A lot of things handed over to him. I actually gave the player of the game vote over to Kana, though, because I feel like the crater that was created in this game by the Renekton offsets and changes so many dynamics that should have otherwise been able to be possible, and all of it was done by himself. He didn't have the most impressive KDA of all of his teammates, nor did he deal the most damage, but I think that his influence in the game changes everything. It affects jungle, it affects mid, pressures Afreeca in so many ways because they just think, well, our top laner's down 2 levels and 50 farm, and it's only getting worse.
Exactly right. I actually thought the kind of warped that draft a lot for T1. So very impressive stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to a short break. When we get back, game number 2.